Hello and welcome to Joylogs Presents What I Learned From, a series which will try to capture the joy and the journey of learning. Some years ago, I used to work with this startup, and we had a smallish office. And I used to sit next to one of my bosses. And for almost 3 plus years, we have sat next to each other every day for 10, 11, 12 hours. And besides our work, we used to keep chatting, we used to keep talking, the entire day. And he had such in depth knowledge about every subject under the sun that if you ask him to, he could impromptu stand and deliver a lecture on India Pakistan relationships. Or he could, speak about, let's say, yoga or Isha Sadhana or, the other Western and Eastern philosophies. Or he could like speak about Muhammad Rafi and Kishore Kumar with the same level of ease that he could speak about Arvind Kejriwal and Narendra Modi. And every single day for these 3 plus years, he would pass on this learning and this knowledge that he's accumulated in his life so liberally, that I felt like I was his student, every single day. And I used to actually love going to work because I knew that I will get to learn so much more today. And I feel that this time that I spent sitting next to him, being his student, absolutely without a plan, uh, completely transformed my life. In fact, in many ways it really sort of cemented the idea of joy logs, which is based on just one simple principle, that one, it is just one conversation that can change your life, as long as that conversation is something that you're completely invested in, as long as it is a conversation that you are so passionate about. It is so heartfelt, and it doesn't matter then what this conversation is actually about. It could be about relationships, it could be about nature, it could be about wildlife, it could be about naturopathy, it could be about anything. As long as it's coming from your heart, it will just take one conversation to completely change the course of your life. And because I have experienced that really firsthand, I wanted to be able to do the same for someone else. So the only purpose and the only objective behind Joy Logs, ever since it started, has been to promote such conversations, to really encourage people, to talk to one another, talk to each other about things that are really important to us. And that, if we are able to do, I'm very, very sure that it will really make our world a little more joyful than before. It will really make our lives, not theoretically, but genuinely, very tangibly in our day to day living, much happier, much more fulfilled than what it has been up till now. So, continuing forward, taking forward the idea of having really these heartfelt conversations, I wanted to actually make a start, and I wanted to, start talking to each of you. So this series is exactly like me having a personal dialogue with each one of you, really about things that I am very passionate about and that really sort of move me. And you might see a lot of books in this series, but in no way is it completely about the books. Uh, Big books, yes, because I actually personally love reading. I am always reading. I love to read different kinds of things. So a lot of what I am passionate about might come back to what I have read in a book, but it is in no way restricted to it. In this particular series, in fact, we will talk about movies. We could talk about a song. We could talk about a poem that I have loved. We could talk about, my absolute obsession with, maybe extraterrestrial life, or really trying to understand in some way maybe theory of relativity, something that I haven't been able to grasp, up till now. But the idea is that I want to engage in this dialogue with each one of you on something that I have really liked, and it has really sort of stayed back with me. It has triggered a change in my life. And through that process, I really hope to genuinely engage in this conversation with you, where you might also sort of feel something. You might also feel that this conversation or this discussion has actually got you thinking, has helped you reflect on some aspects of your life, and has actually helped you probably engage in such conversations further. So maybe every week, we can get together and I can share a little bit about something that I have been thinking about, and it'll be great if eventually this becomes a two-way conversation, a two-way dialogue. Okay, so just to start the series, I was really thinking, what is the first thing that I want to talk about? And then because I was thinking a lot, I thought, let me not think so much and start with the first thing that I'm currently learning from, which is the Tao of Physics, I think, from by Fritjof Capra. And I was introduced to this book through another book about 7, 8 years ago, and I did sort of give this a try many years ago. I think it was 5 years ago that I tried to study it, and I could not understand anything. So now I've sort of gotten back to this book because I feel like I can't, like, this is like my Mount Everest. I have to like finish this book. I have to really understand this book. So, of course, like I said, the main reason is because this is something that I'm currently engaged in. And again, the subject of the book is something that is very, very close to my heart. And I also felt like, in such a beautiful way, it represents, what we are trying to do in this series. So the entire book is about, how, uh, the Eastern mysticism is has great parallels with Western science. On the face of it, it might seem like the two are polar opposites, or that they stand for completely different beliefs. They're completely different schools of thought. But it is, the more we read this book, the more we'll understand that how actually both of them are based um, on the same principle, that both have the same harmony and the same rhythm, that underlies their entire body of work. And I felt that, imagine if science and like philosophy were two different people, and they would meet for coffee. uh, you know when you sort of see them for the first time, you might feel like, oh my god, they're so different from one another. In fact, because the kind of world that we also live in today is very divisive, it might seem like, they probably will have a conflict because they stand for such different things. But the more that they understand one another, the more that they learn about one another, they realize that their origin, their beliefs are actually very similar. There is this great unity between the two that the two are not aware of. So I feel like, even in any dialogue, because the world has become so, me versus you, the world has become so divisive in every subject. Like anything that we talk about today, whether it is politics, whether it is to do with our moral values, whether it is to do with relationships. People have such stark contrasts in their thought that are not very embracing of one another, that we almost get divided into two groups, any time that a subject comes up. But what if we take a moment and we try to learn what the other person is saying, really try to embrace and understand the other point of view. And we will really, in most cases, realize that we are not so different from one another. Even what we believe in um, is really not so different. And we will be able to really find, that one point of unity, that one point of common and shared goal with any person. And I feel like that is something that we can all learn from this book. Like, if we can do it for science and philosophy, trust me, we will be able to do it for any other thing. So next week onwards, so this book is divided into three parts. The first part is about science, the second is about mysticism, and the third is about the unity. So we will also probably do a three-part series, for this book. And next week, I will see you with the first part.